Welcome to Belkin's Growth Podcast, hosted by Michael Maximoff, co-founder and managing partner at Belkin's. Today's guest is Daniel O'Malley, a client engagement manager for Auric Solar. Auric Solar is the #1 reviewed solar provider in the United States. What began as a small company in South Jordan, Utah, has quickly become the largest solar provider in the region and one of the fastest growing in the U.S. Michael and Daniel talk about the incredible growth of Auric Solar and how it was supported by new sales and marketing. Enjoy listening.
How would you can explain the incredible growth of your company in this space? I know that alternative energy and solar are being on top of folks' minds a long time, and a lot of states and a lot of companies are investing into that. But you guys are just killing it, right, in terms of growth and how you're expanding. And you're in 4 states right now. Yeah, so you are in Utah, Idaho, Oregon, and Colorado.
That's correct. Yep.
So is that because you have a great product and your product team is amazing, or you also are kind of marketing and sales driven and you're doing a great job there as well? So what's the secret sauce there?
It's always kind of the question at the root of any business. Why are you guys so good at what you do? What sets you apart from the hundreds of other, solar installers out there? That's something that we get asked quite a bit. I've been with the company for about 5 years. It'll be 5 years in a couple weeks here. The company's been around for going on 10 years. And I think the main thing that I can attribute it to, just being here and kind of feeling the culture of what we have, is it's about the experience. Any other company or any other industry, I should say, is going to be very product driven for the most part. But we are, as you well know, we are kind of migrating over towards this experience economy for a lot of industries, and solar's no different. It is something that you put, it's a home upgrade service at the end of the day, basically. But we do provide this experience of, hey, this is going to help you save money on your power bill. It's going to help you save the planet. You're going to be, helping improve air quality by reducing your own carbon footprint. You can charge an electric car straight off of the solar, so you can be saving, you can just imagine the possibilities for your own life by going with renewable energy. So it is really something that I think speaks to a lot of people on a deeper level than just, oh, hey, I bought a Christmas present for my kids, and
right.
they're gonna like it for a couple months, and then they're gonna get tired of it until next Christmas comes around. This is something that lasts decades. We put the panels up on the roof. The manufacturers that we use, they all have a 25-year plus manufacturer warranty on all the components. So it's not going anywhere. A lot of the times it's going to outlast the roof that we put it over. So it's definitely something that we want to be there for the long haul. We're not just going to be a cut and run, installer. That's something that I think it's hard to quantify exactly how many different companies are out there really in the same level that we're at, because there are a lot of solar installers, but not all of them are in it for the long haul like we are. So it's hard to say how much competition we really have at any given time. Just as an example, a couple of years ago, there were probably over 100 solar companies in Utah operational. And then there was a change to the utility policy, and almost overnight we dropped back down to maybe 20. But we were one of the ones that had been around before it, for the big kind of gold rush, and we had every intention to continue on, and we did so. And there's only, again, probably a handful of companies that I could look at and say, okay, yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to cut and run. The going gets tough. So when we founded the company, I should say when our founder, again, I wasn't here the whole time, but I like to pretend I can take credit. One of the experiences that kind of sparked the process, the founder, Jess Phillips, his dad was our first customer. And what he did as kind of a market test was he reached out to, I think, maybe a half dozen solar installers, just looked them up online and reached out and said, hey, I want to buy solar. Can you give me a quote? Most of them didn't get back to him. And then the ones that did maybe had one phone call and then just flaked and vanished. So that experience specifically was one of the driving principles, I think, was, hey, we can do better than that, obviously, by just showing up, honestly. and obviously we're going to be around to follow through on the commitments that we make. We're going to, one of our other co-founders, Nathaniel Bishop, he was an instructor in solar for a very long time. And so he really knew how to do it right. And so they've been doing it now for, again, over a decade. And so we were able to say, hey, not only are we going to, show up and answer the phone, obviously, we're going to be there to see you through every step, walk you through all the permitting and the design and the installation and all the back end support to make sure it's doing what we said it's going to do. And it's going to be, helping clean the air pretty much as soon as we flip the switch. You're going to see more or less immediate results. I mean, it takes about a few months, anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer, to get from, signed contract all the way through to panels actually operational on your roof. So that's, again, part of that experience is we want to make sure that you're not a customer who's just kind of left holding the bag. Like, well, wait a minute, what did I sign up for? I haven't heard anything. Nobody's out of my house. I don't have anything on my roof yet. What's going on? So it's about, again, staying in communication, making sure that the customers can reinforce their own decision by seeing what's going to come out of it at the end of the day. And really, as soon as you get your first power bill, it's kind of an obvious thing. Like I've had solar on my roof for 2 years now, and I haven't paid more than $30 in years. I mean, it's the normal bill that I get is $8.97, and that's a great feeling every time I open, the bill in the mail. I'm like, all right, cool, still working, still doing exactly what I wanted to. So it is all about that. It is all about being able to show that impact and make the customer feel that they are having an impact.
How do you guys communicate that message to your clients through content, right? Do you use any specific channels for that, or are you just doing email marketing, like newsletters, or what would you suggest to be, your main channels for communicating that vision and that message to your clients and educating them?
It is kind of a mixed bag. I mean, email is still a very, very powerful tool. We've got a lot of content on our website, like blog posts, do a lot of social media posts. So kind of a mix of that is we can, you can send out a newsletter, you can link to a blog post, you can share a snapshot of, an Instagram post, something like that. And there's a lot of different methods, and every medium is going to have its own challenges as far as what's most impactful for a customer. Some people want to see a really nice picture of a house with solar panels on it and say, oh yeah, hey, I could be that person. Some people want to see the data. They're, we have a lot of people who are really numbers driven, case studies. They want to see all the guts of the system and everything in action. So it's all about being able to provide a breadth, a wealth of different options, because different things are going to speak to different people. We've got over 7,000 customers, and I can assure you that not all of them resonate with one single message or one single communication. Some people just want to text. Some people just say, hey, yeah, your solar's in, we got your permit back from the city, and that's good enough for them. There's all kinds of ways to explore that. Email probably is still my go-to. I guess I could go back and forth email, and I'm preferable to Instagram myself. So just because, again, I think being able to communicate with a visual medium is powerful, but that's just me. That's my preference.
So out of those 7,000 customers that you've mentioned, how many of those are the large commercial real estate or commercial business owners, or you do work with direct to consumers, correct?
We do, yeah. We've got a little over 100. Actually, we're probably creeping up on close to 200 commercial or industrial level clients. We've got one of our flagship projects is a soccer stadium here in Salt Lake City. It's got about 6,423 solar panels, if I remember correctly. And it's still one of the largest privately owned systems in Utah. It represents the largest utility offset out of any major league sports stadium in the country. There's a few arrays, I think back east on a couple football stadiums or maybe a baseball stadium that are larger in size and in overall per panel megawatt, but our system covers anywhere between 73 to 90 something percent of their power usage at any given time of year. It's definitely a huge benefit to them. It saves them over $1,000 a day. That's just one example. I mean, we have a portfolio of case studies that we've been compiling to send out to new clients. Some, again, just like every individual consumer is different, every business is different. They're going to have different needs. They're going to have different facilities, different applications that we'll be able to execute for them. For example, with the stadium, we put probably 90 to 95% of the panels on covered parking. So now all of the stadium guests have a place to park under and tailgate and party before the games and all that kind of thing. Keep their cars cool from summer heat, all that good stuff. And at the same time, by designing the carports that specific way, we were able to talk to the stadium, talk to the facilities managers and say, hey, if you guys just time firing up your big stadium lights a little bit differently, you're going to avoid these huge spikes in demand and be able to see a better, lower cost of operation overall, because the panels are going to be firing up all at the same time. We're all about finding that solution for the customer. And you can slap panels on any surface and say, hey, you'll probably be fine. It'll work just fine. But solar is an incredibly resilient technology and it'll produce power. But if you can come up with creative solutions and make sure that we're identifying customer needs and getting ahead of certain things that could help them in their business, that's really what we're all about. It's definitely, again, much more than just a one-size-fits-all solution.
How does it work from the customer journey perspective? So your inside sales rep closes a deal, and then what's next? Does he just hand over the client to a project manager, or you guys do any due diligence first, or how does it work from starting with a new client?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way it works is we do have reps out there, both internal and external. So we do EPC work for some outside sales groups as well. Basically, whenever we get a contract in, we do a little bit of due diligence to make sure that income verification, especially questions like tax liability, can be a concern. We don't ever want to surprise somebody who's expecting, hey, I'm going to get a big tax credit next year by signing up for solar this year. And it turns out, well, you haven't paid taxes in 10 years. So no, you're not going to get anything from the government. That's a bad surprise. That's a bad customer experience. So we absolutely try and catch that as part of our due diligence. And then, yes, essentially after that, we hand it off to project manager. It goes first to our design team. We have an incredibly talented design team. That's one of the departments that I honestly love to brag about the most, because we just have the smartest guys in the room, absolutely top of the heap when it comes to innovative thinking and accuracy. They do hundreds of projects every month, and they're able to turn around really fast. And again, also identify problems. And part of that due diligence is, hey, wait a minute, we sold the customer 30 panels, but we're only going to be able to fit 20 something on this roof. We're going to have to find some other way to get the rest of them up there or work with that. So we always want to make sure that we're giving the best bang for the buck at every stage. And then, once the design is out, it goes to the local municipality for permitting and approving. And that's really the longest part. That's kind of the hurry up and wait stage. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of visibility. Once it leaves our hands, it goes to the city office and we just wait for the stamp. Luckily, again, we do have a great track record with every municipality that we work in, because they've seen our work now, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of times. So they know what to expect from us. We've set the bar very high, and so we are able to get a pretty good turnaround on that these days. And then, once we receive it back, our project manager gets the install crew out there. The installation itself usually only takes about a day. There are some of these larger, more complex projects that can take maybe a couple days residentially. Commercially, it can be, totally different story, obviously. We've got a project, for example, right now that's going to be, we started it in January of this year, and it's going to be completed hopefully by December next year, maybe even December, or maybe even early Q1 2021, but it's 26 huge apartment units. It's a virtual power plant. So there's batteries in every single one of the units. It's called the Solar Lofts. So yeah, again, totally different timelines when it comes to residential versus commercial. But it is something that, again, that is part of the experience. We want to make sure that we're delivering timely, and we are pretty seasonal with that regard because of the tax credits, because that's such a huge driver for a lot of people. We do want to make sure that our systems, when we say, hey, yeah, we've said we're going to get it installed by this year, it's going to get on your roof and you'll be able to file for your taxes and get that on the next tax cycle. We definitely want to make sure we're delivering on that.
Did you guys see any seasonality in your business? I mean, do you guys have a high and low season in the year?
We do, yeah. I mean, it's something that just because of partially that tax deadline, we actually get really, really busy in Q4 usually, but also right around spring and summer, that's when we see a pretty big jump as well, because that's when people start getting really nasty power bills because they've been running their AC all of a sudden. They're like, whoa, I didn't know I was going to pay $300 or $400 for my power bill this month. What's going on? So that's another pretty big driver there. But yeah, I mean, really, the truth of it is the best time to install solar is in later in the year, because you do get a full cycle of sunlight. Basically, you get the full year, the full season of building up solar credits on your net metering account with the power company, and that's able to carry you through both the high summer bills as well as through winter and into next year, basically. So that's something that we know kind of internally. It's not as commonly known outside. And so, yeah, that's another challenge that we always face, not just the seasonality, but just, again, the kind of the educational aspect of it. It's constantly, we don't know whether we're running into somebody who is a solar guru of their own. They've been researching it since the 70s and they're an engineer or whatever, or somebody who needs every step of Solar 101 from the very get-go. And yeah, that's always, we're educators before we're salespeople. We do want to make sure that we're telling people what's going to happen.
What percentage do you think goes to folks that just building up houses or apartment blocks and they are starting with solar right away, comparing to the folks that are transitioning to solar? Do you think it makes sense to educate people on solar when they just started this household journey, or so that could increase the percentage of overall households under the solar usage? And if you've seen any trend recently on people starting their houses or building anything new and just going straight with solar, or they are still using some more traditional energy channels, and solar is just one of those, but it's not the main channel yet.
That's an excellent point. I mean, we have seen more recently where people are coming to us and saying, hey, I'm building a house. I've got some plans already, or maybe I don't even have plans yet. I want to talk to, a solar expert and see what I should be looking for when I'm consulting with a builder. That's definitely a growing trend. I wouldn't say it's a huge percentage yet, somewhat unfortunately, but definitely with regulations like have been passed in California where every new building has to have solar on it. I think it's going to become a much more common trend, certainly in that state and probably across the region. We do, I'd say, again, probably 90 to 95% of ours are retrofits into existing homes, but we've done a number of design to build projects, both residentially and commercially. We actually had one that we built, from the blueprints up, and it's a big commercial building, big office building, but it's got this beautiful solar wing on top of it. It's a really, really striking structure. And so, yeah, there are people who kind of want that aesthetic. They want to say, hey, personally, I think the panels look great. We use really aesthetically pleasing, very sleek black on black panels. They're not the typical kind of shiny industrial, doesn't look like a power plant on your roof or anything like that. But we do have people who say, hey, I want this to be as integrated into the structure as possible. I want it to be more or less seamless. And so I want to have my roof angled at the exact perfect pitch. What's that going to be? And so we'll consult with people regardless what their project goals are and find out what we can do to give them the best end result.
Interesting. I mean, is the demand right now higher than supply, or the supply is still higher than demand?
Right this minute, it's actually pretty tight, but that's mostly because there's a variety of factors. There are a lot of companies, again, that are trying to meet those end of year goals. There were some tariffs that came into play. And so there were a lot of manufacturers who were expecting a huge rush with tariffs coming in, as well as incentives potentially expiring this year. That's still kind of up in the air with Congress right now. But the federal tax credit is set to step down this year by 4%. So there's a big boom there. There's a lot of customers who want to get that under the wire, basically. So I would say this particular instant that we're talking, yeah, we have seen a very, very big boost in demand. And so that's stretching supply lines pretty tight. But the industry has kept growing and growing and growing, and always there's going to be growing pains. So there's enough momentum that it would take pretty much a catastrophic combination of factors to slow down the growth of renewable energy in across the planet, of course, but definitely in the U.S. I think we'll continue to see both supply and demand just continue to exponentially grow. Ideally, they stay pretty much in step.
Got it. It's interesting. Going back to when you mentioned that one of your founders, when he started the company, reached out to several providers at that time and asked for a quote and didn't hear back from them. Do you guys right now have a dedicated agent to handle any inbound leads, or you're kind of distributing that among your sales force internally?
Both, actually. Yeah, we do have an in-house, we call it our inside sales team, but yeah, for the most part, we give all of our freshest leads to sales reps directly for them to work through and disposition and everything. And once they've done their best with it, we do have our inside sales team who comes in and cleans up, anything that's maybe been out there for a week or so. And so we're doing our absolute best to make sure nobody slips through the cracks once they've made a request. And yeah, we definitely get plenty of success that way. That's another thing. That's another interesting challenge with the industry, is that there are so many just lead aggregators out there. Probably, I mean, I hate to say it, they almost outnumber actual solar companies sometimes, it seems like, at least, where they're just essentially a funnel, just trying to capture people's information and then sell it to a solar company. There's so many of those out there, so it can be tough to have a customer who thinks they've filled out a form just requesting one quote, but that lead aggregator sold it to maybe 4 or 5 different companies, and it's just going to have them kind of duke it out. So that customer may get called 4 or 5, maybe even 10 times by different solar companies. So that can be a real turnoff.
Do you have any automation installed on the website that kind of fire out the email once a new user registered on the website, or you're just trying to give a call back right away? Or how does it work if I go in and register on our website? What should I expect?
Yeah, if directly on our website, we are working on an automation like that. That'll be something hopefully here in the very near future. But yeah, right now what happens is it goes into our CRM system, and then the rep gets notified via a text notification saying, "Hey, you've got a new lead in your pipeline," and they're expected to go in and call and then send a text or send an email that way. So we do want to still keep it a little bit more personalized, but that can also be kind of a detriment for speed. So it's always hard to strike that balance of what's going to be the best human touch we can give to every customer without just seeming like an automated, you got thrown onto a robot treadmill and you're going to be, work through the ringer before you actually can just talk to a human and get your questions answered. So that's always something that we're toying with. And that's something I've worked through for years now. I mean, there's again, no perfect solution out there. There's definitely plenty of options to explore and find a good enough or a close to, but it's if there's a perfect solution out there, somebody call me.
Yeah. Would you say that it's more challenging to build at top of the funnel, or the challenge is in actual closing rate and educating a qualified lead, but not a buyer yet, if it makes any sense?
Right, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why having good content is so important, because the more education you can do up front, the more you can be a willing aid in their solar journey, whether or not it's with you as their installer, but just being willing to educate first and make sure that kind of the buyer is qualifying themselves. That makes it so your top of the funnel is much more likely to fall through to the bottom for a sale. So that's something that we've always tried to do on our website is, again, have good content that lets people kind of self-medicate, if you will, and then go through the process of getting a quote. And yeah, we have really great closing ratios actually, but that's partially just because our sales reps are very experienced, very knowledgeable. Again, being willing to educate, and we'll turn down a sale if through our education process we discover, hey, maybe it's really not a good solution for these people right now for whatever reason. I've always kind of joked, like, the only reason that you shouldn't go solar right now is if you can't really fog a mirror at the moment. So that's just my personal opinion. But we do have a great sales team, and we do try and give them the best chance at closing by making sure that they're getting good leads, good qualified leads of people who know just enough that they're ready to move forward.
How many salespeople do you guys have?
We have a few dozen, across all 4 markets. We probably have close to 30, I think. I used to set the appointments myself. I used to be part of the inside sales team before I was on marketing, so I used to know it by heart. I could, count them off the top of my head, but I've departed a little bit from that world. So yeah, I know that we've got a good sales force in each of our markets of at least half a dozen or more people in each team. So
is there any difference those salespeople that are selling to commercial and industrial clients and to direct to consumer, or you don't differentiate internally different roles in sales in that regard?
We do. Yeah, we do actually, because commercial is just such a completely different animal for the sales process. A close on a residential home can be anywhere from your very first meeting to maybe a month or so down the road. Some people kick the tires for longer, but a commercial sale is almost by definition going to start at the earliest it's going to close is probably a couple months or so, because you need to gather power bills, you need to do site visits, you need to put together much more complex proposals because of commercial utility rates versus residential schedules. So yeah, that's all. We definitely differentiate in the sales force just because of that.
How many kind of deals or ongoing conversations should I have in my pipeline as a sales rep? To kind of. No, let's put the question in a bit different light. If I were to kind of, start my own company, or if I were to establish that, because I've been product driven for a while, and now I want to also have some sales people dedicated to selling, right? How many leads or deals should I have in my pipeline to kind of sustain the growth? And then if I were to hire second, third, fourth, and scale my sales team, what would you suggest in terms of how many deals or leads or conversations should I have as the top of my funnel to make sure that I can sustain the growth and hit my target, but at the same time, my salespeople will not be just sitting around and saying that, hey, sorry, I don't have enough leads. I need more leads because I cannot hit my targets.
Right. Yeah, and that's an incredibly complex question. I don't know that there's a perfect answer. The main thing I would say is it depends on your bandwidth. Obviously, you need to have a balance between both your sales coming into the pipeline and also what you can output on the back end as a fulfillment team or whoever you're going to contract that out to. We do everything in-house, so we do keep our PMs busy, but the reps, the really successful reps can do a lot with a little. Again, it really depends on kind of your sales team itself. Every sales rep is going to be different. Everybody is going to have their own preference on how to generate leads or which types of leads to speak to and to handle in their own method. We've got, just for perspective, we've got about 3 verticals that we generally get leads from. One is, we just call it company leads, which is anything the company purchases from outside lead aggregators like solarreviews.com. We've been on their website for a number of years, and we're actually the top rated on their site. And we get a lot of leads from them. We get a lot of leads from Facebook campaigns. We get leads from our website, other lead vendors out there. So that all kind of becomes a company lead. Then we have a door knocking team, canvassing crew in almost all of our states right now. And that's something that it can vary. That's tricky to make work sometimes. So you do need to make sure you're having a good conversation at the door, but not giving away too much, with the prospective lead. And then the last vertical would be anything the rep brings to the table themselves. And that's going to be networking, customer referrals, going to events, setting up a booth somewhere, any number of their own generation efforts. So the ideal scenario is you never want reps just sitting around saying, hey, I don't have enough leads, because that's to me, the answer is, well, go get some. What are you doing? Who have you talked to lately, and where have you gone out and tried to network with a business, for example, and say, hey, can we do a lunch and learn? Any number of different exercises like that are hugely valuable. Set up a booth at a street fair, things like that. So the short answer I can give is it really depends on your bandwidth. It really depends on what the sales reps' skill sets are, and if you can make sure that they're processing a good number of leads. We have reps who have a 60% close rate. So again, they're doing a lot with a little. They don't need to have, I need to have exactly 36 leads in my funnel at any given time to get this. No, they're just burning through. They're just machines. So it's definitely a pretty broad spectrum there.
Okay, interesting. What would you say in terms of working with the sales team and training and growing with the sales team? Do you have any dedicated training program for that? How do you mentor and grow your sales team to be at where they are right now? Or you just focus more on hiring of a very kind of high tier individuals that would not need any training? Or you say that you grow the team from within?
That's an excellent question. And again, there's probably a mix. We have a lot of reps, a lot of our sales reps right now have been with the company for quite a while. So we don't have a dedicated training platform anymore. We leave that up to the sales managers in each market. But the other really, really powerful component is not just hiring the right person who's already got a skill set, but the culture of our sales crew and our company in general. What you may find at a lot of other solar companies is kind of that shark smelling blood in the water, dog eat dog, every man for himself, got to get out there. That is absolutely not the case here. We have just incredible people working for us who are always willing to lift up their fellow teammates. If they have, a new person who's kind of struggling, you'll easily find at least a couple reps will reach out, kind of take them under their wing, say, hey, here's what's worked for me. Let's learn what's going to work best for you, and that kind of thing. So that's something that I think has really, again, set us apart. We're all about that mentality of rising tide lifts all boats. We're not, you're never going to find a salesperson here who's going to try and, steal somebody's pipeline. And it's not Glengarry Glen Ross out here or anything like that. So
my copywriter just recently asked me to share some insights on, because I've been working on a new case study for how one can hire salespeople effectively. And, there are a lot of content out there to support and kind of to share details of what the hiring process for salespeople is. And the very last question that I was asked was, can you give an example of the questions that you usually ask during the interview with your for the interview with the salesperson? Can you share any question that you have on top of your head to support that? What questions do you usually ask, or would you ask while interviewing a salesperson? Maybe on the very last or very kind of qualifying stage, not on the very beginning of the process or the very later stage, maybe somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a great question for my colleague who's our hiring manager. I don't do any of the interviews myself. So I know that she's got some great ones, and she's just an amazing person. That's key, I'd say, just from having worked with her. You absolutely need to have an incredibly empathetic person who's really sharp on your hiring team.
You have this very healthy and kind of working environment, I think, based on what you're sharing right now, the values and the vision and the workflow and the people that you work with are just amazing. What do you do within the company to share that vision or the same attitude or ethic towards the employees? And is that something that is driven from the head to the bottom, or you have an HR manager that kind of starts these programs for kind of maintaining that healthy environment? Or is there any kind of tricks or any insights that you can share?
One of the things, I mean, again, it's got to be a mix of treating people right, that internal email communications, keeping people informed the right way, and making sure that you're sending the right message to the company. That's something that I do a lot in marketing. But we also have, our HR team organizes potlucks, or even just interdepartmentally, we'll have, the customer service team will throw a potluck, the design team will throw a potluck, or get pizzas and bring it into the office and share with anybody who happens to be around. So I'd say, like you asked, whether it's a hat to the bottom or anything. Honestly, what comes to mind is just that it's in every cell of everybody's body here. So it's not necessarily something that has to be generated from grassroots up or trickle down or anything like that. We're lucky enough to bring in people who are going to, again, supplement it. They've already got that good bone in their body, and once they see that that's encouraged at the workplace, people are more than willing to step up. Like I honestly, one of the things that I did is I started sending out just sort of like a company culture update every once in a while, just as a newsletter out to the company, and that had just a great response. Especially, there's some times where you come into crunch time, you have people who are really just nose to the grindstone, and it can kind of wear them down. And not everybody's just a machine and can work through and face adversity. So you have to have some way to lift them up a little bit. And again, everybody responds to a different message, but that's where I got a lot of feedback just from having told a story about my own personal experience with working here. When I was on the sales team, I had just left an appointment. I hadn't closed on it, but it was, it wasn't a bad appointment, but I was just kind of like, you know what? Yeah, I'm still in it. I'll keep going. And I was just going to go over to my buddy's house and sit down and hang out with him for a little bit. And I was driving down the road and I saw a car stalled out on the side of the road, and this guy is out and his girlfriend's trying to steer it while he pushes it. And I decided to myself, I was, you know what? I'm going to jump out and help him. And I pulled into a parking lot, helped guy push the car about like half a block, and it's middle of July. It's hot and sweaty and awful, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And the guy was like, "Hey, thanks," and he bought me Gatorade or something like that. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? If I wasn't working for this company, if I wasn't doing something that I loved in an industry that I love, saving the planet every day, if I was still working at the call center job I had a couple of years before, I would have just kept driving. I would have been like, sucks for that guy. Sorry. At least I'm not him, whatever. So I think it's almost infectious. It's almost something that you just are able to feel that by being here. And so I just shared that story, and that was something that resonated with people. And they're like, "That's great." You gave me exactly what I needed. I was having a rough day, and that's all I needed to hear. So being able to share those experiences, and again, kind of encourage people to just step up and share a story or share something, buy somebody lunch. Maybe that's all they need for the day. So, yeah.
I've been visiting one of our European clients back like a year back or something. And while I was having a tour through the office, I've noticed they have this, they call it thanks box. So long story short is that every employee can go ahead and write a note to another person, like the name and what they are thankful for. Like, thank you, Danny, for amazing training session, or thank you, Danny, for helping me out with that project that we were having challenges with, something like that. And then once a month, they are giving away some gifts, company gifts, like small ones, something that is just not very expensive, but it's still, for the person great to receive something for the extra efforts that you put in or help.
Yeah,
and I've noticed this, and I like, oh, that's great. Maybe I can have the same in my company. And we actually have that thanks box event every month for the last 12 months. And that's just boosts the morality of everyone. So basically what we are doing, we not just putting those notes into the box and just giving away the gifts, but also we are reading the notes out loud, and we are just cheering for every person that helped another person. And it's a company recognition. So I me being a founder of the company and my co-founder, we're just spending 25 35 minutes just reading message, every note out loud, and just thanking for every individual who helped. And that kind of boosts the overall morality. And then we are just distributing the gifts of just some cups or some any just chocolate bars or gift bags or something like that. And that's super great. And every time, people just looking forward to having this monthly Thanksgiving event, and that just makes the summer of the month. So we're basically wrapping up the month with that, and then starting a fresh month, and then do that. And that just works great for company culture. And that's great that I picked up that from one of our clients, and maybe someone who can be listening to this can do the same for their.
Absolutely. And I think, that's something that we do as well. Actually, it's funny you mentioned, but we don't even have the gift portion really. What we have is trophies. We do a monthly round table, just kind of circle everybody back up, kind of recap like you said, month before. And then everybody stands in a circle. You can say something if you want, even if it's just sort of like hey, want to give this person a high five. But we also have these, they're just kind of silly trophies. Like we have a couple of these golden shovels from big groundbreaking events. We have, somebody has a trophy from their daughter's gymnastics class or something like that we, brought in and repurposed. Just kind of fun things like that. And we circulate those throughout the office. So we'll have somebody I had one last month where I just said, you know what, I have been hearing the procurement team on the phones every day, having, sometimes really difficult conversations with vendors saying, hey, where's my stuff? I got people who need this to get their jobs done and all that kind of stuff. And just working really hard. And I want to give them this shovel because they've been shoveling through a whole lot of crap. So, things like that. I think it's really, it's just that factor of recognition and gratitude. I think that is crucial. It's not the explicit reward, because I have friends who work at other companies where they do that same kind of thing, but they have a $25 gift card attached to it. And the culture is, from what they tell me, just really toxic still. And it's almost because people expect the $25 gift card. And if they don't get it, they're just kind of oh, well, whatever, Yeah. So it's really, really important that you lay that foundation of gratitude and respect and recognition for people doing their jobs. Even if I have no idea what the procurement division does, I don't work in the warehouse, but I can still recognize that they're working really hard. They're doing everything they can to make their part of the company run as smoothly as possible, so everybody else can get their job done, and we're a functional machine overall. So I think that's an immensely important thing for any company, regardless what industry you're in.
Do you think that this healthy company culture actually supported this incredible growth that you experienced over the years? Was it one of the factors?
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely a huge factor. We've, like any company, we've gone through ups and downs. We've had hard times. We've had to, buckle down and work hard. And if you had a toxic work environment that you hate coming to work, and you hate your job, and your coworkers bug you, you're just oh man, what am I even doing with my life? You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to be a productive part of your company. You're not going to help the company reach those goals. So I think being able to have that optimism and work ethic that's kind of embedded in the culture of, you're going to do the right thing. If you see something, you're going to speak up and see if you have a solution for it, not to butt in and jump out of your lane and try and, rework everything that somebody's built in their division, but be able to say hey, have you tried this? Can I help? Can I do something to assist you guys, take a little bit of burden off of you, something like that. I think that's something that if we didn't have that, I mean, yeah, I don't know where we'd be, but it wouldn't be here.
This is a great point to wrap up this call.
We kind of got off the solar topic a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. But eventually that's where we were to get to. And I think that you raised some really interesting points. And there's definitely a lot that I can think about after this.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Belkin's Growth Podcast and found it useful. Be sure to subscribe and catch upcoming episodes on iTunes and Stitcher.